Good morning. My name is Maksym Polyakov. I am presenting a paper on capitalized value of urban waterway renewal in Singapore housing market. My collaborators are Said Iftikhar and James Fogarty from University of Western Australia, and another collaborator is Just Pullman from National University of Singapore. So this study started from our water sensitive city CRC project in Singapore, where we try to estimate impact of ABC water's certification on whether its certification valued by the residents of Singapore, and I will talk about this later. So Singapore is a tropical island, but not like this. It is a densely populated city-state. It has abundant rainfall, and the problem is, despite abundant rainfall, it has water scarcity. And the reasons are there are not enough aquifer or lakes and not enough land to collect water, and also big population. So population is 5 or 4 times bigger than Auckland. You have Singapore on the right-hand side, population density map, and Auckland on the right-hand side. And size of Singapore is 75% of Auckland. So you have population maybe 6 times higher. Also, it has huge rainfall, 3,000 millimeters in some places. You have a lot of, you can see there are some reservoirs which help supply water, but also they import water from Malaysia. So government of Singapore in 2006 launched Active Beautiful Clean Waters program, which is abbreviated as ABC Waters. So active means they want to encourage sport and different physical activities near waterways. They want these waterways to be beautiful and they want them to be clean. So this is a program. So the program has, you see on the right-hand side, there is a picture of brochure guidelines, design guidelines for beautiful clean waters. And this is same Bishan Park, which is on my background. So they design different guidelines, trainings, and certification criteria to implement sustainable green features in private or public buildings. They have the program, certification program. If you implement number of features, you get this certifying mark. And our other project was to evaluate whether this certification is valued by the residents. And other part of the program is to implement specific projects on the ground, such as renewal of canals, so building parks like this Bishan Park was one of those projects, or doing rain gardens, or improve reservoirs, shores. So they planned about 100 projects, as they implemented 30 by the time we did this study. And they spent on these 30 projects 140 million Singaporean dollars. So this is location, this is map with location of these projects. And some of them only planned, some of them being in process, and there are smaller and bigger ones, and those start the certification of public and private urban residential developments, and then not necessarily residential development which has those features. So we will be talking about projects like those pink dots. And more specifically, we will be talking about canal upgrading projects. So out of 30 projects, 15 are that were finished by the time we did this analysis. 15 are canals upgrading, and what they do, they enhance and improve concrete drains with greenery and then convert them to recreational spaces. And you can see the 2 examples on the bottom. So Alexandria Canal on the left bottom, and there is picture what was before, upgrading is just concrete, and what was after, there is a lot of kind of greenery and infrastructure which is inducing recreational and physical activity around this canal. And another canal on the right. Also, you see there is improvement, and they added greenery, and it's nice and more beautiful. Cannot judge whether water is clean or not, but let's hope that it is. So, and we wanted to measure whether this improvement of canals is valued by the residents. So the research question of this study is, does enhancing and improvement of canals with greenery and recreational spaces provide amenity value to urban residents? This main question, and two kind of subsequent questions. One is like, how far does this amenity extend? Does this impact extend just immediately if you live next to it, or maybe 500 meters, or maybe 1 kilometer, or maybe whole city? And also, whether how does those benefits, amenity benefit of the canals that we can measure compare with the cost that were spent on implementing these projects. So there was a number of studies which did look at valuation, that did value urban waterway renewal. Okay, there were studies which did valuation of rivers restoration and renewal, waterways, urban waterways. There are a number of studies which did valuation of restoration project of rivers and streams, contingent valuation or choice experiments. And there are a number of studies which did hedonic, not that many. Most of the studies, obviously for choice experiments that were they hypothetical, they can ask this question, but as far as hedonics, most of them were cross-sectional. And there are very few which did before and after comparison, which is differences or repeated sales. Specifically, Jared et al. In they analyzed urban streams in Oregon, and then me and our team with James, Ram, and David did analysis of impact of living stream conversion of the drain to living stream. But no studies that we know we found did analysis of non-market value of restoration of canals in densely populated urban environment. And this question is interesting because so impact of the amenity value of canal restoration or anything in densely populated places might have much bigger impact because of bigger population, like capture that benefit. And also often, so housing in urban densely populated area more uniform, so you can have more observations, and would have it's possible to capture effect even if it's relatively small. So if you look at the hedonic models, like the impact will be 5% of house price, and I suspect there is big drawer problem. So many studies are not published because they don't find statistically significant effect because the magnitude is very small. But if we have uniform or very similar housing stock and very many observations, even small impact might be captured and analyzed. Relatively small impact. But also when it multiplied by the population, it would be actually big. So we decided to use hedonic pricing method. And okay, other reason is that because we found there is a good big data set available. That's other justification of doing this study. So suppose there are houses which are sold, they're shown in gray color. I mean, not houses, apartments. And the characteristic of apartment size, for example, impact the price. Bigger apartment on the left top has higher price, and then maybe apartment next to some features like canal, but this is a dirty canal, it might have higher price, but may have lower price actually. We don't know. And then if canal is renewed or upgraded, then maybe the price will be higher because people value that they live close to that nicely upgraded canal. And we can compare this with this. and see what happens. So whether there is a amenity value of this improvement. Okay, so this is kind of background. What is the Hedonic method, and what is Singapore housing market? This is very interesting. So most of housing stock is built by government, by government agency, which is called Housing Development Board. So about 80% of population of Singapore live in the flats which they kind of own, which are built by this Housing and Development Board. So this is 99 years lease. But bad news, so unfortunately, there is no free market for new HDB flats. So these flats in the publicly built houses called HDB flats. But on the other hand, if you live for 5 years in this HDB flat, which is you pay for it, but it's not like you buy it on free market because it will be allocated to you. So if after you live for 5 years, you can resell it, and there is active resale market for these HDB flats, and we can use this transaction to be assumed that as good as it would be market prices. So, and given population of Singapore about $5 million, 80% of 5 million people, given that 80% of that is HDB flats, and they are high-rise buildings. So there is a lot of transactions. So we got a transaction from 90 to 2019, and we got almost 800,000 transactions in 8,740 HDB blocks. This is like mouth-watering data set. And so this map shows those canals which we selected for our analysis. So we selected canals which were, you remember, program started in 2006. So some of the canals were finished in 2008, and we selected all canal upgrades which happened between 2008, first we had, till 2016, or before 2016, because we wanted to have observation for sales after completion of the latest canal. Okay, any questions so far? So we use difference approach. So we start with raw data, and we try to control for all the factors like size of apartment, except time and treatment. And then we apply time and treatment, and we get difference, which is blue line again. So treated or treatment effect is red dots, those close to canal. Gray would be outside of the canal. We control for characteristics, and then there is time effect, and there is treatment effect. So now blue piece is treatment effect. Okay. So here is what it is. So we use different Hedonic method. Our dependent variable is log of price. So we first control for all different characteristics of the flats except whether it's treated or not, treatment, closed, proximity to canal, to the project, and time, whether it's before or after completion of the project. Okay, so this flat price, these are characteristics of flat. For example, flat type, number of rooms, and story, because like with the higher you go up, the more expensive is usually flat in this market. And then we have another group of characteristics which are locational temporal characteristics, and those would be proximity to MRT, like metro station. So there are a number of metro stations built during the time of our case study, and if station was built, the prices go up in the apartment or flats which are next to it, and it will mess up our estimate. Also, number of HDB buildings were renovated during our time. So there are several programs of renovation. And if building is renovated, it will interfere with our estimate of the impact of the block. So we put these variables which could impact prices, construction of amortized station within 500 meter and renovation programs in HDB blocks. Okay, and then we have this year quarter planning area fixed effects. So year quarter fixed effects to take care of the price trend in real estate market, and also interacted with the planning area like suburb. So we assume that the trends could be slightly different in different suburbs. So to take care of that, we interacted temporal fixed effects with a suburb, let's say. And also there are fixed effects, block fixed effects. So HDB block, it's not building, it's like you have one entrance to the apartment building, and that all apartments which are on the top would be in one block. And so we use this fixed effect. This take care of all locational specific characteristics of the building. We don't need to think about how far it to the school or shopping center or something else. Okay, so we took care of all characteristics except treatment. Now we have other variables which is related to treatment. One is D is whether it's this apartment or flat in treatment block, treatment group that is specifically within certain distance to ABC water site or renewed canal, 500 meter, for example. And then capital A would be after treatment. So the sale of this flat happened after completion of ABC water project. Okay, so we have two of these variables separately within treatment distance or treatment group, let's say, close to canal, and then after treatment, and there are variables, and interaction of this and this lambda coefficient will give us the impact of this canal renovation. Okay, but if you look, there is also other variable which could make some of these redundant. First of all, there is block fixed effects, and it doesn't matter whether you are in treatment group or not. So this D become redundant because, and second is year quarter fixed effect and time effect. So this becomes redundant. It could safely remove and just keep this interaction of whether it's in treatment group with whether it's after treatment. Okay, so this is equation. Okay, and then we have 800,000 observations, and there are a lot of other things which are going in our Singapore city behind. Could be many things which we picked up, like MDB station, metro station construction, and renewal of apartment, but maybe there is something else, like some industrial site was built or something else. So to make sure that we don't pick up something which is not really because of renovation of canals, we selected subsample from those this big data set. Two subsamples actually. One is we selected blocks within 2 kilometers of canal, which had been completed before 2016 or up to 2016. And we picked transactions which are 5 years before and 5 years after completion. Sound like reasonable time. And also we retain block that it has at least one sale before and after of completion of the nearest project. Because if we have these block fixed effects, and if there is a transactions only before completion or only after completion, it doesn't bring any, just inflate our P value without giving any, I guess, contribution to our model. So we left with 53,791 sales in 2,435 blocks. And it's, so canals are built or completed with, the project completed within 2008, 2016, and we took 5 years before, 5 after, and it's different in different places. Okay? But okay, we kind of tried to make sure that our result would be good, but we also wanted to check. So we did falsification test and we selected another sample. So we assumed that or pretended that this project was completed 10 years before its actual completion. Okay, same canals, but we shifted date by 10 years. And we again selected ATB blocks within 2 kilometers of canals of kind of pretend canal upgrading projects, and 5 years before, 5 years after of this falsified date. And we again retained only blocks which had transaction both before and after of this pretend of a falsified completion date. And we got a little bit more sales because market was a little bit bigger, and also we have more, like for some canal we have not fully 5 years after completion in our real kind of study. Any questions? Okay, so, and this is results. So there are 4 models. So I mentioned that I also wanted to find out how far this impact extends. So there are 4 models, and they shown in red and blue and light and dark. So red models show, and I'll show separately, show a model with only 500-meter band. We assume that impact of the construction only 500 meters. And sorry, those would be dark. And then light would be, we have 3 250-meter bands, like 0 to 250, 250, 500, 500 to 750, okay? And red would be real model, true model, and blue would be falsified model. On x-axis, we have impact of this canal upgrade. And you can consider that because of dependent variable is log as a percentage increase, percentage increase of price due to canal construction or upgrade. And on the y-axis, we have coefficient for these 4 models. Okay, so first start with a true model, which has 3 250-meter bands. You see that between 0 to 150, impact is about 1.5%. Between 250 and 500 meter of canal, impact about, again, 1.5%. And between 500 and 750 meters, there is no significant impact. So our 95% confidence interval is crossing 0. So there is or very small or no impact, okay? Let's look at the just model with 500 meters. So it's as expected. So we will keep this one. Let's look at falsified model. So between 0 to 150 meters, there is no impact. Between 250 and 500 meters, there is very small, but no impact. Between 500 and 750 meters, there is very small, non-significant impact. So we can say that in our falsified model, there is no impact. And then we look at this falsified model with just one 500-meter band or buffer, and also 0 impact. So we can be sure that what we found in this red model is due to actually construction of upgrade of the canal, not due to, for example, the trend of prices. For example, prices around canal appreciate faster than outside of the canal, because it didn't happen 10 years ago. Okay, so this is one part. And then it's still not sure, you wanted to check again. So we did try to do a difference in difference approach. Okay, specifically we tried difference in difference exact matching model. Okay, so there is different in different matching model. You could match using propensity score, for example. You can, easiest case, you have subjects, and subjects are pre-treatment and after treatment. It's in study of, for example, different treatment of unemployed, which they might have get training, and then whether they got employment after treatment or not. So you have observation before and after treatment, before program, after program, and they have match those people with people, similar people who didn't get treatment, and you have this difference in difference treatment matching model, okay? Worst case, if you don't have exactly the same subject, we cannot, in this case, we know sales of apartments, but we don't know identity apartment. We know in what block it is, what is a date, what is the floor approximately ±1, but we don't know what exactly apartment or flat is sold second time. So we don't know. So we match them. So, and we match post-treatment apartment which is post-treatment in treatment group. So apartment which was sold within 500 meters after the project. Okay, we match this apartment with similar apartments or flats. One is several is with apartment or flats in treatment group, which is within 500 meters of the block of the canal, actually in the same block, but before canal was completed. Okay, we find similar apartment in the same block before canal was completed. Also, we find similar apartment which is after canal of completion, but outside of 500-meter block. Okay, and we find another apartment which is similar to these, which is in the same block as this apartment. These are in the same block. Okay, but it was sold before treatment. Okay. In addition, because like in our case, timing is very important, we need to make sure that timing, that date of this post-treatment in treatment group is the same as post-treatment in control group, and date of pre-treatment in treatment group is same as date of pre-treatment control. So you match 4 apartments basically, and it's 4, but for each of those treated in treatment group, you can have several like quadruples of apartments. And there are weights. So if for each apartment which is treated in treatment group, there are 2, for example, untreated treatment groups, then the weight is 1.5, and so on. And for each pair of these, we could have several pairs of these. Okay, is this everything clear? I'm sorry for equation. So we have quadruple. I'll show a picture. It will be clear. Quadruples matched for of flats. Pre-post-treatment in treated group, pre and post-treatment in control group. Treatment group is within 500 meters of the canal. Treatment group and control group are 1500 meters apart and matched by story, flat type, block, year and quarter, and MRT and renovation status of the block. And we do same thing, we do similar falsification tests with also with matching. So suppose there is apartment, building, or IGB block, and there are several flats which are sold, and there is another AGB block and also several flats sold, and this one is next to canal and this one is not. Okay, and then we have this renovation. This is time. So same block after treatment, after canal was built, and block far away also after canal was built. Okay, so this one would be treatment group, and this is control group, and this greenish thing would be treated. Actually, all of them will be treated, but I'll match this one. So we match this with this block. So apartment, which is maybe not necessarily the same, but the same floor, with apartment in the same block before treatment, and also here we do the same thing. And then we match dates. So we find some apartment which is in a treatment, post-treatment, which is sold in the same quarter in control group, and this one is also similar in control group. And also we match by story and flat type. So number of rooms same, and number of stories same, because it's very important. No, sorry. And also we may, in addition to date, we match so that if MRT was built here, then both of them have the same feature, whether it's next to MRT or not. And here same, next to MRT or not. With renovation or without, with renovation or without, okay? And then we take differences between this minus this minus this, and take this minus this, and we get difference. Okay, so results. So base case, which is true model in the first column. So impact calculated from this model is 1.8%, very close to what we had in the hedonic model. Significant. For falsification tests, which means we did the same procedure 10 years ago, we have no impact. Okay. So we had number of treated would be 2,000 out of 50,000. And we have 4,000 for falsification out of 60,000. But for each treated in treatment group, there could be several pre-treatment, and it could be several pairs of control. Okay, so that's result. So we found 1.4% and 1.8, which is not deviate much from the hedonic model. Units within 500 meters of canal upgrades, which are treated, so to say, which we found that 500 is a good number, good extent of the impact. We have 81,800 flats, and the value as of 2016 in 2016 dollars would be $37 billion, Singaporean dollars. We assume that improvement is 1.4%. So confidence interval is 0.8 to 2%. Then we found, based on that, we calculate the total benefit is $592 million, Singaporean dollars, and confidence interval between 300 and 756 million dollars. And remember that budget spent on those 30 projects would be $140 million, but we only looked at 12 canals. So based on that, we can say that it's definitely worth to implement similar projects in Singapore. So even considering that our model only captured part of the amenity value which those canals bring, only to those people who live and who basically capitalize that value in apartments or flats, still the benefit much higher than the cost of the project. And conclusion, we estimate benefit of canals upgrades within IBC Waters program, and we estimated that it's substantially greater than the cost of the program. There are limitations. Okay, so ex-post evaluation could play an important role into justification of similar programs for the government, because that's government program. And limitation is that only capture benefits which capitalize the housing market, which means that if there are canals which are upgraded where there is industry or something like that, we cannot capture that, cannot measure the value. And also it's applicable if there is adjacent housing. That's it. Thank you very much. And I'm sure I shall show this slide for the next presentation.
No, later. You can show it later. Go to you.
Yeah, I'll show it later. Okay, I'm now open to all questions you would like to ask.
Okay, now it is time for questions.
Okay, Ram raised his hand, I see.
Okay.
Okay, my question is, how are you doing, Maksym? Sorry. Okay, I'll come back to the question.
Yeah.
Shall I go, Asa?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Maksym, I think it's really interesting research. I'm just wondering about one thing, which is your falsification test and what we call in this type of difference in difference, like the parallel trend in the price movement in this case.
Yeah.
Is there a correlation on those, or you actually did that parallel trend test by doing the falsification test here?
Yeah, that's what that was the idea, that we kind of, because okay, parallel trend is because it's housing market and like prices go up and down. It's very complicated to talk about a parallel test. Okay, so basically this is since what we did is falsification. We did switch 10 years back. Obviously we can look at 4 periods, I'm thinking, and we could pick like 4 or 5 year periods and see whether like change from one to another to another to another. That would be other way to do it. Mm-hmm. But yes, we did this just falsification test.
Okay.
So we didn't do, so if you look where people did parallel trend testing, that was not in a housing market.
No, of course.
That's about, if you talk about, again, unemployment or health or something like that. And you're talking about people, and clearly, it's much easier to measure the outcomes than in our case.
Yeah, I think I was just thinking about in terms of the price of the apartment, let's say, prior to the implementation of these programs. For if they are moving in more or less in the same way, of course, there will be a volatility for a variety of reasons. If you pick two or four, like you said, 4 years interval, you might see the similar trend, and then that justifies the impact of the treatment in this case, more perhaps in a pronounced way. But yeah, it looks like similar sort of approach you have adopted. Okay, thank you. That was the question.
Okay,
and you don't have to answer my first question. Don't worry.
Okay, you'll call later.
Thank you, Ram. Dave has a question.
Okay.
So I've got a slightly broader question. So, I mean, Singapore has a big investment. Lots of the city-state is being, invested in this sort of way. And I'm wondering, I should probably know the answer to this, but I'm wondering what you would expect to be the consequence if the whole city is treated, if the whole city is made into a water-sensitive city and there's lots of green infrastructure everywhere. Would you expect a different result from a hedonic analysis than at an earlier time when there's only 5 or 10% of the cities being converted?
It's a complicated question. I don't know the answer. I suspect that, okay, I suspect that there will be benefit, but the question whether you could capture it with the hedonic method is different.
Sure, okay. In the case where the whole city is being converted, it might not appear in the hedonic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what to compare with. There is nothing to compare with.
Mm.
And that's okay. Obviously, you cannot do whole city of canals because that's how many canals are there.
Sure.
But you can do other stuff, parks. But then, it becomes very complicated because, to do park, you have to do it somewhere.
Okay, I was thinking that's an interesting point. I was actually thinking a little differently. I was thinking along the lines that when only 5% of the city has been converted, it has a sort of a special novelty sort of value that people sort of might aspire to. Whereas if everyone's got it, then it might lose some, cachet, might lose some specialness, and therefore not be valued so highly.
If you look at the map,
that would imply some sort of Veblen direction on that, whereas this is just saying these are implicit prices for these services. So I think that should hold, and unless it is some sort of conspicuous consumption relative argument, which is possible, but I haven't thought of in a great deal.
Okay, so in this case, there are two. Just look only about. Suppose you do every canal. Okay, still not everyone would have this benefit. Okay, they pretty much half of the possible places they did. Okay, as far as canals, but you can do it more. Okay, but then your supply, since your supply go up, maybe your demand curve is the same, but the implicit price would be lower. Because you slide down your demand curve because your supply would be shifted.
Of course, yeah.
Okay, but we didn't go ahead and estimate what is actually demand curve for this.
But in terms of your absolute value, there still might be higher values because you are picking up in the percentage impact.
Yes. If absolute value would be, but it also would be much harder to estimate.
Yeah.
Okay, any more questions? Mike.
I think this is similar to David's question, really, but I'm just wondering whether there was a selection process whereby those first ones were put in. Presumably they weren't put in at random, I assume. So is it possible that they dropped them into locations where they thought they were going to generate greatest benefits, and therefore you can't just extrapolate that the next sites, irrespective of Dave's issue, but just that the next sites might not be as beneficial as the ones you've got?
It's possible, but okay, there is other more interesting issue. So I'm not sure whether they looked. Maybe they looked just at the whether you can make something out of that canal. Maybe okay. In many canals there is no one lives next to. That makes sense. Like just no people. Or this one, for example, or I know. But in other places, I'm not sure what. Maybe it's not very bad in the first place. But also there is separate issue which I don't know. I mean, we didn't look at it, but there was one study which looked at different improvements like playgrounds and stuff, and they found that those are actually implemented in location where in election districts of the ruling party. But okay, we didn't look at this, and I know with Canal it's hard to locate that by this principle because like that's only so many canals you have.
Okay, thanks. Sofina, you want to ask your question? Sofina?
Yes, it's just a clarification question. That is, in your slide, you have said there is no free market and there is a resale market for the flats. What do you mean by no free market?
Okay, so there is, as far as I know, there is no free market for new flats. Okay, so this HGV builds houses or buildings or blocks, and their flats are located on some principles, not on the market base. So you may be in queue, and then they look at the demographics and look at the like ethnic mix, and look whether your relatives live, and then you are given an apartment which, and maybe there is no market price, but for resale there is market. That's what I wanted to say. So there is no data about sales or initial sales of these apartments.
Okay, thank you so much.
So, Maksym, nobody owns apartments, so it is the government who owns the apartments. So what are the implications on equity in that sense? Like,
what do you mean no one wants? Like people want, but they are not. It's not market-based allocation to new ones.
so they own, but it is not based on market, right?
Yes, it means that it's not free market. It's maybe you sign to some queue or waiting list, and you are being allocated some apartments, and maybe price is fixed. I don't know what it is. It's possible that it's fixed price or price determined by government.
Okay. So only some people get the benefit of these green spaces.
That's for new. But we looked at old ones, we look at the resale market, and so people get. So the idea is not who gets like windfall, but idea to measure what is a benefit.
I know. But government spend money on this, right?
Yes.
So only some people get the benefit. So
yes.
How do they justify that part then?
I don't know how they justify. So what is the option? Not to do this? For example, you can go and
it's good to do it, but
cut all the trees in the Netherlands, for example, and people immediately will be more equal. They would be not liking that, I guess. But he doesn't like. So we didn't decide not to cut all the trees in the Netherlands.
No, I'm not telling it is bad, but I was just thinking how
it just there is generally benefit to population, but who gets it? It's different question. It's just luck. Yeah. And maybe all those who get benefit who already lived when Canal was being constructed. And if they keep living, they just get this amenity value. But if they decide to sell, they get some cash.
Maksym, you also have in your last slide, you said that you only captured the market price in the house, but there might be other types of benefits.
Yes, so that's maybe we can add that there are other benefits. And for example, there was a study which looked at the using travel cost method to value some improvement of reservoirs, and they found that there is benefit to people not necessarily living within 500 meters. Okay, so we capture only those, we assume that, so it's not the benefit extend to 500 meters, but what we're able to capture, its capitalization in housing market is within 500 meters. But more people supposedly like get amenity from that. And except that it would not be captured in the housing market.
Okay, thank you, Maksym. Do you have any more questions? If you don't have questions, let me thank Maksym for joining us today and for his very interesting presentation. So next week, our speaker is Professor James Fogati, and he's going to talk about recidivism and prison education programs revisited, evidence from USA.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
See you
much.
next week.
See you next week.